So let's get to nutritional supports. So one of the key things to understand is that you're growing another body, so and that body is made up of amino acids. And that amino acids are protein. So you need to consume protein-rich foods. Again, often this is a license for people to go out and binge on animal foods, chuck in as much meat and fish and whatever they can get as possible. And often they have cravings for it, and they're real cravings because the body needs the protein. But you can get protein from other places. Again, if you haven't been to one of my talks on raw food and nutrition, you may not know this, but you can get complete protein from plant sources, and there are many plant sources providing this. For me, the best ones during pregnancy are hemp seed and spirulina. Those two are incredibly rich in protein, gentle on the system, mildly detoxifying, and incredibly nourishing from a mineral perspective too. You can take either protein from hemp seeds in a powder form, like hemp protein powder in smoothies, or you can use the seeds that have been shelled, which makes an amazing hemp seed milk. So you can drink hemp seed milk throughout your pregnancy. And after you've been given birth, even more, because then you're breastfeeding. And that's where your protein really gets pulled out. So often, especially vegetarian or vegan mothers, get very drained during a pregnancy because they aren't effectively nourishing themselves, especially from a protein perspective. Micronutrient rich is essential because if you haven't been on a very micronutrient dense diet before you fell pregnant, the baby's going to pull all your reserves out. All your iron, magnesium, calcium, all your minerals, zinc, it's all going to go into baby. Baby's going to pull it. You are now a farm for baby to come and get nutrients from. So unless you replenish them in your system, you're not going to have any, and you're going to have dropouts afterward. And often that's why people get depressed, start feeling tired and weak. It's just nutrients have dropped out. Micronutrients are things like vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients from plants, enzymes, energy. You get these in abundance from superfoods and from raw plant foods, organic raw plant foods. And then key to talk about are omega-3 rich foods, because a baby's brain is built, a large part of it, out of omega-3 oils. So you need to make sure you're getting a sufficient amount in your diet to feed the baby's brain. And you only have one shot in getting the baby to have the best brain it can have. That's when it's inside and during breastfeeding. So you got to, that's a high one. We made sure we took even extra supplementation for DHA, which I'll talk about in a moment. So omega-3 rich foods will be things like flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed. Those are the key plant source ones. And then obviously on an animal food side it would be fish. Well, I wouldn't trust most fish today because of the chemicals that are used in farming and the mercury levels that fish are picking up from the ocean. So I'd rather go to supplementation beyond plant food sources. Any questions on that so far? I don't want to get too bogged down in detail, because otherwise you guys are going to get a bit overloaded. When we finish our book next year, it'll all be in there. Basically, the nutritional support is the Rawlicious diet, made up of a large amount of superfoods. So we didn't actually change our diet through this. This is something that we realized. We thought we'd have to eat differently. And people asked us, are you going to eat differently? You know? Are you going to eat differently when you're breastfeeding? Is the baby going to eat differently when it starts to feed? And we're like, why would it? Why would we? We're already on the best possible diet there is. Certainly for us. So we didn't need to change anything. What we did is, especially Baron, is I just made sure I upped her intake of things like superfood smoothies, of things like green juices and green powders, just to get an even more potent, nutrient-dense things for her to utilize in building the new baby. And our DVD, Rawlicious, goes into the whole diet in great detail. So for me, that's the key. If someone's wanting to fall pregnant, they need to get the DVD, they need to watch it, they need to start changing their diet, they need to start adding in healthy superfoods, they need to start cutting out junk food, and they need to do a detox. And all of that is covered in the DVD. So it's multi-use, you see. Superfoods are particularly key because of their mineral density and their protein density. They're the most amino acid rich plant foods available. and that's why I speak so highly of them. There are certain that didn't work for Beren, like cacao. Didn't work for her in the first trimester. It was too rich for her. She didn't like much fatty food. She actually didn't eat avocado much. I mean, she loves avocado. But after the first trimester, it all changed, and then it was cacao was going in, and avo was going in, there was no problem. So you go with what your body is telling you. What about animal foods? Often people ask us, well, did you eat animal foods? Because if you read a lot of books on the subject, many of them will say you can't get everything you need from a vegan diet. I've never really said that we're vegans. I've always said we're plant-based raw eaters. Basically, I don't like a box, and I find any type of diet kind of a box. So, you know, if an ant got in my honey, or an aphid was in my greens, or something like that, I never had an issue. But we started questioning animal food on a far deeper level. And there was sufficient research out there to make me see that things like properly reared eggs, when I'm talking about properly, I'm meaning they haven't been fed anything, they've just scavenged for wild food, or have been fed things like chia seed. Those kind of eggs are actually superfoods when you eat them raw, the yolk. Those can be very beneficial added in, especially during pregnancy and breastfeeding, because it can really up the nutrients of the person. And often it's a food that they're already used to eating, and they may not be getting enough from the plant foods they're consuming. But be very careful about the free-range and organic eggs you buy in the shops, because most of that is garbage. The whole free-range concept is ridiculous. It's not what people think it is. And there are people out there doing true free-range eggs, for example. Beyond that, there really wasn't anything. I mean, I don't even know if you had any eggs during your pregnancy.
Once or twice in the last trimester.
Yeah, like once or twice in the last trimester, just to try. You know, but it was, for us it really wasn't a biggie. Mainly because we had such a nourished diet already, but I put it in there because I'd rather have parents safe than sorry. And if parents aren't doing enough to nourish themselves, rather get it from a really good animal source then, like a raw egg. And then obviously raw dairy can also come in there. But you can't get raw dairy in shops because it's all pasteurized. So you've got to go to, as far as I'm aware in Cape Town, there's only one place to get truly raw dairy. And then you've got to look, milk may not work for you because of the lactose. Maybe lactose intolerant. So then you've got to go to something like raw yogurt or raw cheeses or raw butters. Those can provide nutrients, especially things like calcium, that the body could need through that time, especially once you're breastfeeding. We're not drinking milk, we're not eating dairy, you know, eggs every now and again. I mean, I can't actually remember the last time we had it. But again, I'm very confident in the diet we're already eating. And that's why I put it out there as an option for people, because I don't want people scared off of animal foods just because they've heard, oh, all animal foods are bad. That's just too simplified. That's not the case. Most animal foods are bad, but that's primarily because of the way the animals are raised, slaughtered, treated, processed, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but it's a topic much bigger than tonight. Someone had a question?
Oh, that's fine.
Go ahead. So those were really the main two. There's some people calling it like a faceless diet. The raw faceless diet. So if you want to include animal foods, fine, just make sure they didn't have a face. Yeah, so honey, eggs, dairy, maybe a oyster or two, faceless. Okay. So we get to supplementation. So I'm just going to run through some of the key ones that are often suggested for pregnant mothers and where you can get them from. DHA is an omega-3. It is the one needed for brain development. And you would get that from marine sources. You do not get DHA from plant sources, terrestrial plant sources. What seeds will give you is ALA. And ALA is converted in your body into DHA. Now if you have some kind of metabolic issue or you're basically not converting ALA efficiently, then you could have a deficiency in DHA. So rather than be sorry, we made sure we supplemented and took DHA in. And especially because the draw on DHA is so much higher in building a brain, the brain of a child. You can get vegan sources of DHA, they're extracted from algae. So you don't have to use fish oils, but you can use fish oils as long as you make sure they're absolutely clean. And they will say that they're purity tested, that there are no heavy metals present. Those can be appropriate. Putting that out there. Folic acid. This is a nutrient you get primarily from green leafy vegetables. So again, most women are at risk for not having sufficient folic acid. But this is really only a concern because they aren't getting in enough green leafy veg. I mean, I did a little bit of looking into how much we would get considering how many greens we ate, and there was no issue. We did take a supplement which contained folic acid in it anyway, just in case, but greens are your main source there. Vitamin B12 is key, especially for vegetarians and vegans. The longer term, the more essential. You may have a deficiency. It's easy to test in a blood test to check what your B12 levels are like. I do it every year just to make sure. And mine, even though I've been 99% vegan for 7 years, have been within range, well within range. Regardless, we just made sure that there was plenty around for baby too, and we supplemented. And the best source there is either sublingual B12 tablet or a transdermal patch. Those are the two supplements I would recommend. Make sure it's methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. If you do not methylate properly because of metabolic imbalance, you could end up getting cyanide in your system if you use cyanocobalamin, so methylcobalamin. You can obviously get B12 from animal foods like certain seafoods and dairy and eggs, if you're including animal foods in your diet. Vitamin D3. So D3 is absolutely essential. It is the vitamin that's produced for free when your skin is in contact with the sun. So I mention this one because a lot of people don't spend enough time in the sun. They're in offices all day long, they're in cars all day long, and they're not getting the exposure they need. Again, you can test your D3 in a blood test to make sure what it is. And I recommend doing that before you're falling pregnant, just to make sure where your levels are at. Because if your D3 is fine, you don't have to supplement. Today there's some really good D3 supplements out there. You can get them even in dropper form to max the dose. Just make sure you don't overdose on it, because D3 is one of those vitamins you can overdose on. So I would actually suggest that any of the supplements you want to start taking, work with qualified healthcare practitioner, either a nutritionist or someone who knows how to read blood tests and how to give you what you need. We've got some cards at the back there for Chantel from Naturally Nourished, and she can certainly assist anyone if they want to know, how much of the stuff they should be taking. Because self-medication can also be dangerous. Then we have vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is something that helps with the absorption and uptake of calcium, amongst other things. And it can be quite deficient in vegan and vegetarian diets. That's why we mention it and why we put it in. We actually took a product by the Synergy company called Bone Renewal, which is a product with calcium, magnesium, D3 and K2 in it. So it's an awesome supplement. You will have to get it from overseas though, because it's not currently available locally. But we really enjoyed that one. And the Synergy company, in terms of efficacy and integrity, they are unmatched. I mean, their stuff is incredible. Top in the world. You can't get anything better. Magnesium. Essential across the board for anyone, whether you're pregnant or not, but especially during pregnancy. Often women will have cramps, especially lower body cramps, leg cramps. Baron had a few towards the end of her pregnancy, and she just upped her vitamin, or at least her magnesium, and they completely went away. So my preferred method of supplementation is transdermal with magnesium. So you can get magnesium spray in a bottle, you spray it onto the area that's cramping, and it releases the cramp. It absorbs through. If you've got headaches, you spray it onto your neck, it absorbs, releases your headache. If you've got period pain, any kind of cramping pain, magnesium is incredible for. It's like a miracle cure. And it's a very inexpensive supplement, so definitely something to have on your shelf, regardless of whether you're fully pregnant. Iron, obviously a key one, spoken about a lot. There is a chance that there will be bleeding during birth. You may lose iron stores, and having enough before you go into labor is a good idea, just in case of bleeding. You will get iron from certain green leafy vegetables, from berries, from superfoods like spirulina is a key source of iron, probably one of the best. There are iron supplements out there. The best one that we found during the pregnancy was from a company called Mother Earth Minerals. It's a type of colloidal iron known as angstrom iron. So it's a very, very, very tiny molecular size that can go directly into the cell without digestive process happening to slow down the release or the absorption. So that's a really powerful source. Again, that's from the States. You've got to order it online. Not available here at the moment. Probiotics, absolutely key. If you do not have enough beneficial bacteria when your baby is born, it will be hamstrung for its life. At birth is when their bacteria is set. And I'll talk about bacteria a little later, how important it is. So make sure you're on a quality probiotic. Well before, throughout, and after. Just keep on it. And then, if you do have a good multivitamin mineral supplement, can be beneficial during pregnancy, just to make sure your bases are covered. Most of the multivitamins on the market are complete garbage. They're made out of petrochemical vitamins, non-absorbable minerals, often in ridiculous amounts that your body just gets overloaded with. So I'd be very wary of taking any old multi. The top selling multivitamin in this country is the worst one available. I'm not going to mention names. The only one we would take was the one from the Synergy company called Vita Synergy for men or Vita Synergy for women. And again, pregnancy, there cannot be an expense limit put on this. You need to get the best for yourself and your baby. If you need to, get a loan. It's that important. Okay. So, any questions on supplementation? Actually, before I move on. Pretty straightforward. So moving on. Rest support. Often overlooked, especially in our busy, hectic lifestyles from a Western perspective. Go, 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 go until like a week before you give birth and then on your back. You have to rest during. Your body is going through radical changes. You know, energy systems are shunting around, blood supply, blood volume is increasing, nutrients are moving around. You know, lots happening. You need to allow time for you to rest and recover during that. So making sure that, you know, if you're still working, get flexi time. So when you're tired, you can not go into work. Or work half-time during your pregnancy. This idea that people should work up until the day they give birth is ridiculous, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, by all means, if you love what you do, and you're a gardener, and you're out there, go for it. You know, but make sure you're giving yourself enough rest so that the growth of that fetus isn't hampered. Because one of the key things that has been found that can stop, literally stop the growth of the fetus is stress. We went through it, actually, because if you go with a gynecologist or even midwives, they will track the size of your baby as it's growing. And we had a bit of a section where there was a lot of work stress happening. And we noticed over a few weeks the baby just stopped growing. I mean, that's a shock to your system when you see that happen. You're like, is the stress worth this? Absolutely not. You know? So we immediately just, none of it. And then baby started growing again. So it absolutely does make a difference. Sleep, essential, get as much as you can. In this case, there is no too much sleep. If you want to sleep 10, 12 hours a day, sleep 10, 12 hours a day. If you want to sleep more, sleep more. As much as you can get it, literally. And obviously reducing stress is key, key, key. So those are all the support systems going into pregnancy and during pregnancy. But there's so much more that I can say that I really wanted to touch on birth and a bit on post-birth. Because the birth process itself is a bit of a minefield out there at the moment. Most people just think, oh, I'm off to the hospital to give birth. And we found that actually there's a lot more to it than just that.